Hey guys, today is June 13th, 2025, which happens to be a Friday, meaning it is Friday the 13th. So I thought, what no better time to talk about Friday the 13th, the franchise. So I chose to talk about the original and the remake because I think those two are very vastly different and very interesting to talk about because the original, of course, in 1980 is a classic, very well known. The Jasons from different movies in this franchise still have big audience of horror-cons. Like, this is a very iconic franchise, very well-known franchise. And then you have, and the interesting thing is with the original, it is not the best in the franchise, but it's still well-known and still well-regarded by a lot of people. Then you have the remake from 2009, which is actually a very good remake that takes Friday the 13th in a very different way, but takes elements from the franchise that makes it a good movie, that makes a connection. And I like that element, like they do that. So I thought it was interesting to compare the two. Starting out with 1980, I want to address the thing. Hey guys, so there's gonna be something I said in this video when it talks about Alice being the one who dressed like Jason's mom. It's been a really long time since I've seen part 2 to 3, and I completely forgot that it was Jenny and not Alice, so you can ignore that. When it comes to the rip-off of Halloween, because yes, the director did say taking ideas from Halloween, but I think that they took elements from Halloween, added their own soundtrack that is very memorable, and they made a different movie from Halloween, but you can definitely see the elements they took. Like, if you compare them side by side, I think they're different movies, but you can definitely see the inspiration from Halloween. But with that, memorable soundtrack does it too, which also was from Halloween, but different soundtrack, but it's kind of same idea. But that kind of being said, besides the soundtrack, I do think the opening is also really good in this one. The event that kicks it off from the 50s that you see. I understand the acting in this movie is very campy, and to me that just works. I like the campy acting, even though at some points I'm like, okay. But with movies like this, I tend to forgive and overlook a couple of things, and campy acting it's just something I sit back and enjoy just for this first movie and this franchise in general, unless it's really bad. And as well as the final girl in this one as well, I think is pretty well regarded with Alice. I think Alice is actually a pretty good final girl. I don't think she's at the same level as Nancy from Nightmare on Elm Street, but I do think that her character and her decisions are kind of smart. But of course she relies on others. Like, if it was just her facing Jason by herself the entire movie, she wouldn't have survived. But I still think she does survive on her own to a degree. So I still think her character is really smart. And then we go into the second one, what she decides to do, which is, of course, the iconic Just Like Mom, which I think that is also a very iconic moment in this franchise. So I do think she's a fine, decent final girl, I think this movie has. And I do think that the Jason's mom twist still works for me. Even though it doesn't make complete sense plot-wise, it's just kind of there. There's really no hints or anything, but I still think overlooking that, it's fine, it works, it's iconic. It works for me, but I can see why some people would be like, that doesn't make sense. And I am overlooking the movie plot holes for the most part in this franchise. I'm like, they're full of them, but I think I just like to sit back and relax in these type of movies and just watch it for the joy and just the movies that it is. But the only one plot hole that stuck out to me like a needle really is, how did the cops get there in the morning? And this is kind of my beef with the ending here. I don't like the ending of the original because, first of all, how the cop get there, right? There was no one called, things were quiet, the cops just kind of came, which I don't know how. But if we overlook that, we get the ending of Jason the kid taking Alice down on the boat, which I wouldn't have a problem if they ended it right there. But they decided to take it more into her waking up in the hospital and talking about the boy, where's Jason the boy? And to me, that whole scene the whole sequence of Jason's mom being revealed and that killer chase, which I think was pretty solid, still pretty good. And then you get her going out to the boat, finding that. It's just too much going on for the ending, and I don't like they do that. I don't like it. And I just wasn't a big fan of that one. But with that kind of being there, I have a few really negatives on one side that one. First of all, there was this one character that his whole thing, no kidding, about this movie was to dress like an Indian and act stupid. And this really like a sore thumb to me when watching it, because I'm like, every time that character was on screen, that's all he did. And I'm like, what? Okay. And it wouldn't have been that big if it wasn't for the very tropey cast, which, yes, is in really all of these movies, and movies like this, yes. But that's just what made the Indian guy just so more noticeable to me, because not only was the cast tropey, then you have this character that sticks out like a thumb compared to them, and I'm like, okay, that interesting choice. And the kills in this one is fine. You know, for a movie like this, and I'm acknowledging its legacy in the 1980s, I think the kills were fine. I don't really have any much to say about that. So to really end with my opinion on this one, I do think it's a decent movie. It is a classic, it's well known for sure, and I'm acknowledging the legacy in the franchise that started, but it is not the best in this franchise. I think part 4 is the best in my own opinion, but the Friday the 13th 1980 is not the best in this franchise. It is still a decent movie from the 1980s, about a slasher, but to me, it is okay, it is decent, it is still iconic, but that's really all I have to say about it. I feel like I'm gonna get so much hate comments, but it's not saying anything bad, it's just not for me as much as it used to be. Then next I have the 2009 remake. Now this tells the story of a brother on the hunt for his sister who went missing near that area. First off, what a refresh taking this franchise, because I like that they actually had a different reason as to going and gave a kind of motivation as to staying and trying to find out what happened. Like that a lot. And as much beef I kind of have with the final guy, which we're going to talk about, I like the idea of that. And I do like the idea of like the abandoned camp mainly taking place in like one cabin. I like that idea. It works, it's something different, but it also connects enough to the franchise. But to start really off with this, I do think this has better acting, because you have better actors in this. It's not as campy, so it works. I also feel like the opening sequence we got with like what kind of remake would happen in the 1980s was awful. I feel like if you just take footage from the original somewhere, it would have been so much better, but they did not do that. And the acting was just so bad. And at the opening sequence, I'm like, come on. Like, you had a very campy opening in the original. You can't, and you're doing this, this terrible, awful flashback opening. But it does have the other opening with the campers. That was interesting. That's fine. But the opening flashback is terrible in this movie. And this movie does have less plot holes. They still exist, but there's a lot less than compared to the original. I don't really have any plot things to really point out. Like, I'm ignoring those for the most part for this franchise, but it's less. And the kills in this one is also fine at the same time. I still think it's like a little bit better than the original, but at the end of the day, the kills in the original and kills in the remake are kind of the same level to me. They were fine. There's nothing special to report. And this does share the same problem with the trophy cast. Now, it doesn't have the weird Indian guy in this one, but it does have a trophy cast that you see a lot in movies, like the douchebag, the girl. I still think there's a lot of trophy cast in this one, but that's in a lot of movies, so I just sit back and enjoy on that one. And the ending does do better. I like the ending so much better in this one because it ends with Jason taking out the sister, and tell me why that ending was just like, that's the perfect way to end that movie. Like, yes, thank you. And I'm glad they chose to end it there. It reminded me a little bit of the ending there, but the original without all that other extra stuff, but I like the ending. But I think my biggest beef with this movie is the final guy we get in this one, because he would not have survived if he didn't have help the entire film. He didn't, yes, he did fight with other people, but he did it with other people. Like, no one convinced me. If it was just him with Jason, like the last 30 or 40 minutes, he would not have survived. Now, Alice survived. I think she's a better final girl between the two of them, but he was just not a good final guy. Like, he needed people to survive, and that's it. And that to me just takes it down so much. I'm like, come on. You couldn't have given this guy any other chance to survive, but it just relies too much on others to survive. So overall, I do think the remake is a better movie for me personally. I do think the original, as iconic as it is a decent movie. It's not my favorite of the classics, but I do think the remake does step up for me. And if I had to say which one is better, I would say the remake is better in many ways, but the original will always have a name and be a lot more popular than the remake. So without further ado, let me know what you guys think of these movies. If you prefer the original or the remake, comment down below, and I'll see you guys soon with a brand new video.